And then the piece starts on page 453. We all there? All on Kill 'em, Crush 'em, Eat 'em Raw by John McMurtry. Alright, awesome. Alright, so first, just to open up the lesson, I'm just going to ask a question. What is something that you can't live without? What is something that you're passionate about? And how much would you be willing to give up for it? Who plays sports? Who's really passionate about what they do with their sports? Judd, you play basketball, right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Do you? What do you play? What? What do you play? Baseball, football, basketball. Which is your favorite?
Baseball.
Baseball? Alright. Let's go along with like something along the lines of Joe DiMaggio, where it's just that we talked about before. Would you be willing to go through that media circus that we kind of discussed previously, where it's just like everyone's swarming around you. Judd, what do you think about this? Judd, what do you think about that? Judd, what about this? Oh, Judd, what are you doing? Judd. Is that something you'd be willing to do to like make it big in baseball?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, but the thing is, like, not everyone shares that passion. And while like dreams are big, dreams are important, some people see the payoff as something that's not as big or worth it. And we see this through John McMurtry's attitude towards football. Does anyone else have an example of whether it's singing or some other talent that's big or larger in their life? If no, it's cool. But all right, so let's move into discussion. So, what are some major events? What are the main pieces that like drive through that are shown in the piece? What are the main events? What are the main themes that you can see through this text?
Comparison to football and war.
Yeah, that's a huge theme. And one of the things, and how does he compare that? What are some examples or parallels that he draws through that? Hannah?
He like says the words that they say are to say, like, go crush them, go kill them, stuff like that.
Yeah, that's huge. It's not only just what they're saying with the concept of the terminology, but also the same mentality, right? And that's huge. But if you can push that further, like, how else can you see this kind of mentality through football? How is this warrior mentality shown?
In practice, they have like drills, and you kind of related that to like drill sergeants.
Yeah.
Kind of what they have to do for training.
Very good, very good. And that kind of talks about the whole you have to keep going mentality of just keeping on driving and pushing yourself. But again, it goes back to the idea of, is it worth it? I mean, the concept between war and football is very different, correct?
Yeah.
So, I mean, let's compare the things that there are, like, the struggles after war, or someone returning back home, or someone after after playing football for so many years. I mean, there's a similar toll. So, how does he describe that throughout the text?
Okay, and use that along with football.
Very good, and that's a major point that he discusses throughout it. And I mean, but again, there's a major difference that there is in war compared to football with injuries. What does he describe having to do to like keep his self quote unquote manly if he's to play football?
Like,
Exactly. And that's a huge point in which just in war they have medics. They have medics to care for you. Yeah, sometimes you have to push through to survive, but that's a matter of life and death. And one of the major themes is this concept of just seeing these differences between war and football, and seeing that football is doesn't have the same payoff as war. I mean, football is a game, and while we'd like to think that it's something more and it's glorified in some sense, I mean, it only lasts so long. Whereas war, it's just like you're standing up for something that you truly believe in. So that's one of the major ideas that I feel McMultry is trying to go along with. What are some other themes that we can see throughout the text? Or what are some steps in which he kind of, as a character, develops? Or what is something that he misses throughout the text? He mentions it later on, as he also talks about um, just kind of talking about his injuries later on in the piece and how he can see no villains.
What?
What what is an aspect of his life that he misses when he goes on to talk about later in the piece how when he talks about his injuries there are no villains? What is something that he wishes he could go back to?
Just kind of like besides all the injuries for the game itself.
Yeah, I mean, he kind of, but what more so does he miss about it? Just he continues to go back and talk about just how it used to be simple. And I guess that's the point that I'm trying to convey. It's just, he talks about how back in days of yore, that he misses the simplicity of just being able to go out and play. and not having the rigorous toll that it took on his body, which is another theme that we can see throughout the text, where it's just the injuries, they keep dragging him down. He misses the just days in which he did it because he wanted. And then slowly it kind of starts to snowball into something larger that we see throughout the text, where it's just, it becomes less fun. It becomes more of a job and a toll. Because, I mean, Judd, you said you would be willing to pay any price for baseball, but see, I imagine 5, 10 years of, Judd, what do you think about this? Judd, what do you think about that? And then having that continue and spiral, I imagine that you'd get sick of it. You'd want to stop having to pay that price. And that mentality that he has of just the price for football is much greater than what it should be. He misses this idea of the simplicity that it once had. What are some other themes or just aspects that he talks about through his own character development and just themes that we can talk about?
Well, at the end, kind of talking about his injuries, the doctor said wait 3 weeks to rest, and the coach went on a play in 2 days. So at that point, he just decided that for him, that wasn't worth it anymore.
Yeah.
It's kind of like his development over time as he kind of start to like it less and less because of the rules. That eventually at one point he just had enough and was done.
Yeah, so that goes along with the whole mentality of is the end toll like actually worth what you truly love?
Yeah.
And that's the huge theme that we see throughout this piece. Along with just the constant theme of war and just football. I mean, there's just a very basic other part of it that we're just kind of dancing around, and that's destruction. And I mean, let's just look for examples throughout the piece where he just talks about that. I mean, Anna already touched on one where it just talks about the same terminology of love them, kill them. So where else do we see that throughout the piece?
I think like going into football, you have to accept the fact that like you are like there's a high chance that you'll get injured, and you just have to go with it. The love of the game drives you to keep playing along with injuries.
Yeah, that's very good because I mean, just this is something that you willingly go into the game. I mean, there is the draft, and you don't get to choose which team you end up on necessarily, but I mean, the love of the game drives you, but somewhere along the line, kind of the love in the game just starts to fade out or simmer away. That's one of the major aspects of the piece. All right, I think that's about it. So, what I'd like you guys to do is just something really short for me and take out a piece of paper and just write down 2 major themes of the text. And, yeah. So, thank you guys.